Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back. Today's Daf Hayomi, Maseches CHULLIN Daf Gimel. We begin 6 lines from the top of the Yomit. So this pretty much picks up from yesterday, where the Gemara began with a question on the lashon, on the phraseology of the Mishnah, choice of wording. We begin with a lechatchila hakol sheichten. Okay, if we page back to yesterday's Mishnah on Beis Aleph, hakol sheichten. So it begins with an ideal situation. It can be done, but then it sort of shifts to b'di'evet after the fact. Ushchita sam kshera. If done, then it works. So actually, let's just go through the whole Mishnah quickly. So we begin hakol sheichten, because it's going to pertain to today's discussion as well. We had this question with one resolution yesterday by Rabbi Bar Ula, and today come another 5, no less than 5 alternate approaches to the Mishnah in resolving this difficulty. So again, let's just go through it. Mishnah Kol Sheichten, all are allowed. Any individual is allowed to do shchita. By the way, Tesis brings from the halachos Eretz Yisrael, Nashim should not do shchita, and then he disagrees with that. So Hakoil obviously just means a yid, a guy may not do shchita. We learn this from the a pasuk that it has to be somebody who's one of the member of the tribe, right? So a guy cannot do shchita. Some learn it from the pasuk ve'ochalta v'zavachta ve'ochalta. Only somebody who has a mitzvah of shchita can do so. Okay, in any case, hakol sheichten, all can do shchita lechatchila. Shchita and kshero sounds like, it's b'di'evet, if it happened, it works. That seems to be a conflicting sentence, right? Here we say you could, then we say, well, you shouldn't. Mishnah continues, chutz mecher sheit v'katan, except for these 3 who shouldn't be doing it at all, even b'di'evet. We're concerned that they may have ruined the shchita, may have not been successful in their shchita, which takes knowledge and expertise and physical stamina and emotional perseverance to withstand the scene. Shembe kalkol shchitas, and they might ruin. The Mishnah concludes, however, if they did it with others observing, v'acherim roin ayson, under supervision, what we call today mashgiach, then okay, we accept the shchitas and kshira. So there are 4 parts to the Mishnah. All can. Number 2, well, if they do it, it's okay. 3, not at all. 4, if there's supervision, that complements the sheichet and certifies it. So, what about this initial conflicting statement? So Rabbi Bar Ula says we're talking about a tameh who is doing shchita. Well, if it's only CHULLIN, although we're speaking about special CHULLIN, which is meant to be preserved on a higher standard, as though it's karbanos, because he pledged himself to do that. He committed himself to that process, to preserve it, as though it's kodesh, in order to customize himself to keeping higher standards, so that when he gets to real kadeshim, he knows how to handle it. So, with the Rabban, he's meant to preserve its tahara status. He's meant to guard it from tuma. But if he's standing far away, so even if tameh can do the shchita from far away, without a concern of coming into direct contact with the actual animal. Hakol sheichten lechatchila. Ushchitas and kshera, that's by a korban. That's more severe. You're dealing with higher stakes. Not Torah. One may not be tameh. Transfer tuma to a korban. So there, even from a distance, with a long knife, which will not transfer, will not conduct the tuma to the korban, he shouldn't be doing it just in case he might touch. But if he does it b'di'evet and he says he didn't touch, he vouches, then it's okay. So that's the b'di'evet. Then we have the cher sheit v'katan, they can't do it at all, even b'di'evet. And then we have the supervision clause, which accounts for some sort of missing element. So let's say the first story of the tameh doing CHULLIN, the tameh doing the second case, tameh doing kadeshim, and he's not here to vouch for what he did. So if there was somebody watching, and we have that mashgiach, then it's okay. That was Rabbi Bar Ula's approach. Okay, Abaye Omar, so we're 6 lines from the top. He says, I'll give you a different shot in the Mishnah. Hachitani reads like this. Hakol sheichten. All can do shchita. What's this expansive term? All. What are we including? Vafilu kuti. A kuti is a member of that problematic group that was transplanted into Eretz Yisrael, and they underwent some sort of questionable conversion. Now, even if we hold that they were legitimate converts, which apparently we're going with that approach here, right? The Gemara later will point this out. We're going with the approach that they're considered gerim, but they weren't really so meticulous about adhering, certainly not to the oral Torah, not the Torah Shabbat Peh. They would take things very literally. Some things that they adopted, they would do all the way. Very religious on that aspect. But, for instance, pasuk of Lifnei Iver Leisitin Michsho. Don't place a stumbling block in front of a blind man lest he trip. So literally, that's what it means. But the Chachamim interpreted that to be applicable to any sort of Michsho. Don't trip somebody up spiritually either. You can't feed somebody something unkosher. They didn't adhere to that point. So they themselves practice hilchos shchita all the way. They would only eat a slaughtered animal, but feeding you, he had no qualms about that. Says the Mishnah, so technically a kuti can do shchita, but only when is that allowed? There's a Yisrael standing right there, watching, observing, certifying that shchita to ensure that it was done properly. But suppose the Yisrael is not stationed there. He's not standing there all the time. He's just, walking in and out, inspecting, periodically. In this case, since it's not a constant supervision, we shouldn't allow him to do the shchita. Suppose he did it under this sort of quasi-supervision, which according to Abaye does not really qualify as proper supervision. So what's the solution? Can you still eat it? Yeah. By performing the following test. Cut off a little piece of meat and feed it to the sheichet and see how he responds. You see, he himself would never eat nevela, right? So if he sits down and eats it, then it's kosher. He did it properly. And you can eat from that shchita. But if he failed to eat it, he deferred. Right? So now, there's something questionable here. Asur lechel mishchitas, you can't eat it. Because, again, for himself, he's careful, but not for you. That's part 2 of the Mishnah. Part 3, except for these individuals, even if they did the shchita, there's no way to certify it. They're not able, they're not capable. Shema yishu, shema yidrusu, shema yachlidu, they might have delayed, pressed down to it, twisted it up. Then comes part 4. V'kulan sheshachtu, all who did shchita under direct supervision. It's okay. Now, what's this referring to? Hahaya, which case? 1, 2, or 3? Is it going on case 3, which we just came off of? If it's going right back on that, it should just say v'im shachtu. It should have said it like that. V'im, if they did the shchita with. Why v'chulam sheshachtu? It sounds like it's a whole new scenario. Ela kuti. You're right. It's not going back on the immediate halacha. It's going back on the previous case of the kuti. But the issue is that here it sounded like, okay, if you did it and there was constant supervision, it works. It sounds like it's not ideal. But a minute ago you told me if you're standing there watching constantly, it's ideal. Honestly, you just told me because Yisrael is really there all the time. That's even allowed l'chatchila. And here it sounds like it's only b'diavad kasha. We'll leave it as an unresolved question on this pshat of Abaye. Amar Rava. Now Rava takes issue with one point. According to Abaye, only constant, continuous supervision really counts. If you're just coming in and out, that type of hashgacha doesn't work. It's not ideal. That's not. We find a Mishnah, Masechet Avodah Zarah, where it's a perfect system to just come in and out, surprise visits like we do today with the mashgichim. We don't always have mashgiach timidi. But now we have a Mishnah, maniach oived kechav mechanusay. So we have a wine store full of wine. And the Yisrael, the owner, left the wine in the store, and he left the guy there as well. Yisrael Yotzev Nichnas Mutter. As long as the owner is coming in and out, it's okay. Says the Gemara, who says it's okay? Lichatchila hasa miktani maniach. Does the Mishnah say maniach? You should leave him there. Do we advise that? Ha maniach tani. If he did it, do you have it? Okay. But lichatchila, who says that works? Elamihacha. Rather have another raya. That nichnas v'yotzi, coming in and out, works even lichatchila. Ein hashemer tzarech liyis yeshiv mishamer. There's another halacha there regarding wine. So the Yisrael who's guarding the wine doesn't have to be standing there all the time. Even if he's coming in and out, it's okay. And here we're giving you instructions, l'chatchila. Apparently it's okay, it's ideal. Elam Rava, therefore Rava shied away from Abaye's pshat. He says, I'll take the pshat with one modification. You don't need constant supervision. Even nichnas v'yotze is good, even l'chatchila. Elam Rava Chitani's mission reads like this. Number one, akol sheichten. All can do shchita, v'afilu kuti. Okay, so in that sense he's going like Abaye. It's including a kuti. But when is that allowed? Lichatchila? Even with nichnas v'yotze, periodic inspection is okay. Kish Yisrael yotze v'nichnas. So that's lichatchila. Part 2 of the Mishnah. Aval bo motzei sheshachat. What if the Yisrael comes in after the fact, after he did shchita? Now you do that litmus test mentioned earlier. He's supposed to take his eyes at the meat, and feeds it to the kuti and sees how he reacts. If he eats it mutter, it's okay. Then you know it's kosher lechem shchitas, so you can eat from it. If you fail to eat it, asur lechem shchitas, don't touch that stuff. Part 3 of the Mishnah. Chutz b'cheres shoyte v'katan, who are not capable. In this case, dafilu diavad nami loy. Even if it's after the fact, leave it alone. Shema yashu, shem yidrusu, shem yachlu. They might have ruined it. You need expertise. You need stamina. Part 4. To all those that did shchita under supervision. Now again, what's this referring to? Ahaya. It's going back on the immediate halach of the chesed v'kat. If it's going back on that, it should simply say vim. And if they did shchita with supervision, shachtai vim shachtim boy, that's how it should say it. What's the v'chulon? It sounds like we're starting again. Ela kuti is going back, skipping back to the case of the kuti. And here we're saying there's constant supervision. Then you know it's okay. Why? Amr, you just told me, according to Rava, you don't need constant. Even if he's just coming in and out, checking up on him, that's okay, even l'chatchila. Kasha, that's a strong kasha. Here comes another pshat in the Mishnah, Rav Ashi Amar. And later the Gemara will explain why each one preferred his approach as opposed to the opponent's approach. And a lot of it has to do with these kashas that we're asking. So Rav Ashi, trying to avoid this issue, says, I'll give you a different pshat. Rav Ashi Amar, the Mishnah reads like this. Again, we have 4 parts to the Mishnah. Part 1. Hakol shechten all do shchita. Afil Yisrael mumar. Oh. So he has a different approach to the Mishnah. We're covering a mumar. A Yisrael who deviated from the Torah way, doesn't practice Torah way of life. Well, since he's still Yisrael, he can do the shchita for you. Ask the Gemara, to what extent is he deviating? What's his status? Where is he holding life? Mumar lamai. Lechol nevelas te'avim. We're speaking about a fellow who's not. He's not lahachis. He's not doing it in spite. He's being drawn after that lifestyle. Rashi says, l'te'avim, to satiate his desires. He can't find kosher food. He'll eat non-kosher food, but he's not. Sold on non-kosher food, right? And in this case, Rava says he's still qualified to be a sheikhet. Look at the Rava, Yisrael mumar, oichel nevels de oven, if he's slid off the track to the extent that he follows his desires. Return to my base. He can still be he can still use his shchita. Boydek sakav v'neisenloi. So in this case, you have to ensure that the knife is sharp. Inspect the knife before you give it to him. But in terms of his ability to do shchita, we assume that he'll do a good job. Why not? If he has the availability to eat kosher, why not? So that's the first case in the Mishnah. L'chatchila, give him the knife, let him do it. Suppose you fail to give him the knife. Lo yishchet, he shouldn't do shchita at that point. Right? Because who says he's going to bother checking the knife? It's a tircha. He's not into doing much effort to, to keep to the right thing. Lo yishchet vim shachat. Now let's say the mumar did do shchita, so it's after the fact. You can still salvage it by checking the knife right now. Boidik sakina achrab. You check the knife, after this. After his shchita, nimtzei sakini yafa. If it turns out to be a good kosher knife, mutter lechem mashchetas, you can eat it. Vim lav, otherwise, also lechem mashchetas. Case 3 of the Mishnah, where it's totally invalid. Chutz mecheder shaita v'katan. Dafilu diavad nami lo. There we don't accept it at all. Shema yishu, shema yidrusu, shema echlidu. And then we have case 4 v'chulan shashachtu. All those who did shchita under supervision. Again, the same semantics question. What's the v'chulan here? If it's just a continuum. Ahai, what's it referring back to? Which circumstance? Which we just discussed. If it's going back right there, v'im shachtim boile, it should just say v'im, like it's a continuum. Ela Yisrael mumar is going back to the mumar case. To say that if there's supervision, it's okay. Hold it. Did you check the knife or not? I mean, that is the defining, criterion. Either badach saker nasan light. If you checked the knife before you did shchita, amris. Just told me it's ideal. You can do it even l'chatchila. There's no qualms. Apparently he didn't check the knife beforehand. Again, if the knife's still around, okay, check the knife fashta now. If the knife's not around, what good is supervision if they didn't see the knife? What good is having other people standing there and him doing it under supervision if they haven't really gotten a chance to check the knife itself? Maybe he used a chipped knife. Shachet. Maybe he did shchita with that. Kasha. This is a kasha. Next pshat. Ravina Amar. Chitani. Let me explain to you the mission like this. Part 1. Hakol sheichten. L'chatchila all can do shchita. Who's the hakol? Who are the people that we're including? Hakol mumchen sheichten. Anybody that's a known expert, well versed in the halachas, expert in the procedure, they can do shchita. So what's the point? Of course, no mumchen. It's enough that he's an expert. Even though we don't have a track record for him, he hasn't done shchita before us a number of times. Rashi says 3 times to establish himself as an expert. So what we do know is that a mumcha, which Rashi learns to mean, he understands. He learned Hilchot Shchita as an expert in the halachas, but in terms of a practicing sheikhet, he hasn't yet established a record, a history on that. It's still okay. The main thing is his knowledge and his being proficient in the process. But in terms of actual practice, even if we don't have a record on that, you can assume that he'll do a good job. Now, what's the point of having that record? Rashi says, because even if you know and you understand, but you need emotional perseverance to get through this procedure. So technically, it's ideally you should confirm that this fellow has the ability to see the shchita all the way through till the end without fainting from the exposure, right? So that would be one point that experience would give him. Okay, etc. Or the other points of expertise. In any case, so that works. Even if he's a mumcha, when does this pass? We know for a fact that he's an expert in the halachas. Let's say we don't know whether or not he's an expert in the halachas. That he knows, to speak about, knows how to relate to the halachas of shchita. We don't know him as an expert in the halachas. Lo yishcha. In this case, he shouldn't do it l'chatchila. So that's case 2. He's not a known expert. Once he does a shchita, we can sit him down for a test. We fire questions at him. If you can respond properly to halachas of shchita, mutter lechem shchita, you can eat a shchita. But otherwise, asur lechem shchita, you can't eat the shchita. Case 3, chutz. In these cases, in this case, don't touch their food. Shema yishu, shema yidrusu, shema achlidu. because we have good reason to believe that it was not a successful shechita. There is a shehiyah, there is risa, there's chalad, all kinds of halachas we'll see later in the Masechta. And case 4 in the Mishnah, v'chulan sheshachtu, again the same semantics issue. What's the v'chulan if it's just referring back? Ahai, what's it referring to? On this case, alakoy, if it's going right on that, v'im shachtim boy, they should just said v'im. Ella, rather it's going back, skipping back to the case ashein mumchin, on the fellow who is not known to be an expert, not known to be knowledgeable. Well, again, why do we need supervision? You just told me that you can give him a test after the fact. The answer is that let's say, come on, the live the case, not around for taking the test. So we'll never know what he's all about. The only way through it is if, in fact, there was supervision there. There was Yisrael Emed Al Gamav, a mashgiach. Now we know it was done fine. Okay, so according to this version of Ravina, first version of 2, the defining factor is, the most important element is the mumcha, being intellectually honed for shechita. V'ika damri, Ravina Amar, according to the second version of Ravina, was like this. He reads the Mishnah differently. We start with the first case, Hakol Shoichten. What's that? Hakol Muchzaken Shoichten. Well, he has a track record. We've seen him do shechita many times. Twice, 3 times, right? So he has a chazaka that he can do a proper shechita. So according to this approach, chazaka supersedes mumchius, meaning it's more important that we confirm that he's a muchzak than being a mumcha. Muchzaken, right? Hakol muchzaken shoichten. Muchzaken. Ava b'shem mumcha. So the Mishnah says Hakol shoichten means Hakol muchzaken shoichten. Being a muchzak allows you to do shechita l'chatchila, even if you're not a known expert. We don't know whether he's an expert or not. But if we see him doing a proper shechita over and over again, we just accept him as a shechit. But when is that true? We know that he shechted before us 2 or 3 times and he didn't faint on the job. But let's say we don't have that track record. He shouldn't do a shechita l'chatchila because he might faint. He might not be able to bear the experience. Let's say he did shechita. And he says, I'm telling you, I vouch. I was fine. We can trust him. Case 3, where even with the Evad, we don't accept their shechita. Comes case 4, again the same question. What's the v'chulan all about? Ahai, what's it going on? It's going back on this case. It's going back on this. V'im, it should just say v'im shachtu. It's going back on the case of the fellow did not have an established track record. You just told me that as long as he vouches, that's enough. You don't need constant supervision. The less say, come on, the Saint Terra says before, he's not around for us to query him. So in this case, the only other option is supervision. If there was somebody there watching and observing, and we know that it went well, that's okay. So now we concluded no less than 6 ways to explain our Mishnah. And then we'll analyze why each opinion preferred his approach versus the other. What point of difficulty was he trying to resolve? So we have, let's start with yesterday. We have Rabba Bar Ula. Let's just do a quick recap so that it'll be easier for us to understand the next piece. We have Rabba Bar Ula, which we referred to earlier. That was the Tameh, right? The Tameh doing Shechita. So first we began with the CHULLIN, over to the Kachim. And the CHULLIN was a special type of CHULLIN which had to be guarded from Tumah. And then we had a question, well, why are we talking about the Kachim in Maseches CHULLIN? We finished with, we had 2 answers to that. Either, here's the focal point. Here we're speaking about Hilchat Shechita, so that's why it belongs here. Or really the main central area is of discussion of Karbanis is really in Zvachim. And in Chulin we just threw in the halach of Kachim for good measure. It doesn't really, it just came along. That was Rabbi Bar. Then we have Abaye, that we're talking about a Kuti, who's technically considered Yisrael, but the problem there was that we had a kasha at the end from the last part of the Mishnah, which didn't really flow so smoothly. Rava learned that you don't need to have constant supervision by a kusi. Even nichnas v'yotze is enough. In contrast to Abaye, required constant supervision. But even he had a question. Kashi, we left off with that difficulty from the last part of the Mishnah. Rav Ashi took the approach of the mumar route, which according to Rava can do a shchita if it's just a minor mumar, low-level mumar. But again, we left off with that kasha from the last part of the Mishnah. And then we switched over to Ravina, two versions. In the first version, we said the main factor is the mumcha. The second version, the main factor is the muchsak. Okay, now let's mix them up. Ravina v'Rama bar Ula. So these two opinions, K'Abaye v'Rav Rav Ashi. They didn't want to go with Abaye, Rav, or Rav Ashi because all three ended up with a kasha. They didn't resolve that last clause of the Mishnah from the kashu v'chulan. They had the question from v'chulan at the end of the Mishnah. Okay. Kula Rav bar Ula le'amri. All the other ones didn't go with Rav bar Ula of the tamei with the kachim, because that triggered the obvious question: why are we talking about kachim in chulin? La'achlish and the amris. According to the one shot that we said, well, hachi ikar. Here it's the main point because here we're talking about shchita. Other it's the opposite. Hasam ikar. The kachim koy. If anything, the main place is in Masechah Zvachim because that's where it talks about karbanis. You can't say this is it really belongs. La'achlish and the amris hasam ikar. So according to the other terrorists, where we went with the approach that in Zvachim is the main point, that's the main place to discuss Vacha, but in Chulin we just brought it in for good measure as part of the discussion. Vacha, I done Tam B'Chulin. Once we talked about a Tamei doing Chulin, which was the issue in the beginning of the Mishnah Tananami, we already threw in Tamei in Karbanas El B'Mikdashim. So what's the issue with that? Well, the issue is a very critical issue. Why is there even a problem with a tamei with chulin? There's no isser in tamei chulin, an animal's chulin. Tamei b'chulin gufel, it's strictly, there's no point in allowing a tamei to do a shchita on a chulin. You see, we had gone with the approach that we're talking about a special fellow who committed himself to adhering to higher standards, even by chulin. They don't hold it at chulin shenasu al taras hakodesh lav kodesh damu. Chulin, which is being treated like kodesh, doesn't have the status of kodesh. You don't have to preserve its tahara. So there's no issue, halachic issue with Kulu Ravina le'amri. Now the others did not take Ravina's approach. Why? La'achlash in the amris mumchen in she'en mumchen loy. According to the first approach, where mumcha is the main point, so if it's a mumcha, otherwise not. Well, mumcha is never something we have to explore. It's obvious. Why is a person even doing shchita? We assume a person who's approaching an animal to do shchita, shechid is a mumcha. It's a knowledgeable fellow. You don't have to question him on that. Roiv Mitzuyin, most likely, people who are involved with shchita, it's a shchita mumcha, they're experts. So that wouldn't be an issue. La'achlish and the amas muchsak, and in she'en muchsak, according to the second approach, the defining criterion is muchsak, does he have track record or not? If yes, otherwise not. No, it's not important for us because we're not concerned that a person would faint on the job. Again, maybe the point is, we assume you're doing it, you know what you're doing, you can handle it. Let's go back to Rav and Abaye, who both took the kuti approach, except that Abaye required constant supervision. Rav says nichnas yetz is enough. So we understand why Rav didn't go with Abaye. Rav Lam Kabaye kikushe, based on his question, because he challenged Abaye's assertion that you need constant supervision. Abaye lo mekir Rava. On the other hand, Abaye did not go with Rava that periodical supervision is enough. Hasam lo naga chanaga, because Rava's proof was based on the brisa there, where the guy is sitting there, and where the mashgiach is only there coming in and out. Well, that's not comparable to our case. Hasam lo naga, there you don't know for a fact that the guy touched the wine. Right? So as long as the yid is providing that deterrent, the guy won't touch it. Hacha naga, here, the shaykhid is touching, that means he's involved in the animal. Right? So you know for a fact that he's in charge, he's in the driver's seat. And Rashi says it takes a split second for him to just slide his knife the wrong way. You never know what happened. See, we can't just rely on nichnas v'yaitzi. What good is that? So he checks every couple of minutes. So what does that mean in terms of ascertaining that it's a proper shechita? Rav Ashi lo merkat harvayu. Now Rav Ashi, who took the mumar approach, did not go with Rav and Abaye, who went with the kuti approach. You know why? Because savar kutim gerei arayis, and he knows that a kuti is not qualified for shechita. He's not even considered a proper ger. Their conversion process was tripped up by was triggered by the episode when the lions came to attack them. Was that a fair? It wasn't a legitimate, sincere gerus. It's not really considered yidden. I can't even do shchita at all. Abaye didn't go with Rav Ashi, that it was a mumar, a fellow who was not adherent to religious practices because of the his desire. He didn't go with that approach. He didn't know the Rav's halacha that a mumar l'te'ava and is still considered the kasha to do shchita. But now comes one final question. Rava is the one that holds that a mumar l'te'ava is kasha. So why didn't Rava just take that approach? Why wouldn't Rava go with his own shita and use that as a pshat in the Mishnah? You're right, he did. L'dvarav da'abaye kamar. When Rava responded to Abaye, it was just sort of relating to Abaye's wavelength. Meaning, Abaye, you don't hold of Rava's halacha that a mumar l'te'avin is qualified. Okay, fine, granted, let's not argue that point. So that's why you learn that the Mishnah is talking about a kuti. Okay, so Rava sort of went on to his page. Okay, let's deal with that. Kuti, fine. Let's assume it's a kuti. I don't need to be talking about a kuti. I can be learning that's even a moral te'avim, because according to me he's still qualified. But let's shift. Let's go to your point of view. So it's a kuti, but still, why are you insisting on constant supervision? Even nechnas v'yetz is enough. But Rav himself didn't take that approach to the Mishnah. He himself certainly would take his own approach. That we're talking about a mumar. Because a mumar l'te'avin could do the shchita, and he could eat from the shchita, provided that was a checked knife, like we learned before. Okay. So basically we had the Mishnah with a semantics question in the Mishnah. Turns out the Mishnah has 4 sections. Hakol sheichten l'chatchila. Shchita doesn't share by the eved. In some cases, even by the eved it does not work. But if there's supervision, that's okay. We had no less than 6 ways to understand the Mishnah. All the best to you, Natzlacha Rav.